Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Marlo Meets. Today I'm going to be speaking with Natalie Costa. Natalie is a kids confidence coach and the founder of Power Thoughts. I've been following her and admiring her from afar for a little while, so I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. Natalie's already here, so hopefully that's working.
Hey!
Hi!
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just putting the volume up there. Oh, there we go. Good, stay. I'm really good. I'm really well. Although it's really grey today. I was like, where's the sunshine gone?
I know, and it's so cold as well, and just, well.
I know. I know. I was like, oh, can we stay in bed? But I'm good. I'm really well. I'm really excited to chat today. I've really been looking forward to it, and thank you for asking me to be here.
Me too. Thanks for doing this. I was just saying, I've definitely been admiring and following you from afar for a little while, and so it's really nice to have this opportunity to have a proper chat. And we haven't spoken before, apart from Instagram messages.
Yeah.
So get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think you came onto my I think I came across you and connected with you. Was it through friends of ours, Chris and Rose? Is it Chris?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. I mean, they fab. And I remember thinking, like, oh, this looks really great. And I think from there, I started following you, and I love the work that you guys are doing as well. So I think it's going to be a good, interesting conversation.
Definitely. We are simpatico. I think we have a shared philosophy around supporting children and their well-being and confidence. And I just, to begin with, I'm really interested to just hear a bit more about your journey, Natalie. And I understand, I think you used to work in education and psychology. How did this all come to be?
Yeah, the dots made no sense moving forward, but they make sense looking back. So yes, I was a primary school teacher. So I trained in South Africa, did my teaching degree, really wanted to get into psychology. So I did my psychology separate degree and did up to my honors. And I was intending on doing my master's in psychology, but I thought, well, let me come over to the UK. A lot of South Africans were doing that, 13, 14 years ago, ages ago. And I thought, well, let me come and teach for a couple of years and then I'll go back. But that never happened. I ended up staying here. And I was teaching, but I also then realized I didn't quite want to go down the psychology route that much anymore. But I still felt like teaching was great, but it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. It's like, this just is not lighting me up. And then I actually dabbled a bit in the fitness industry. So I became a fitness instructor, and I was umming and ahhing about becoming a personal trainer. And at that stage, life coaching had kind of made its name on the scene. So I remember the two courses, still looking at them thinking, oh, I love them both. Which one do I do? And I just thought, well, actually, let me go for the coaching, because that kind of fits under the psychology umbrella in terms of understanding human behavior, but it takes on a slightly different route. And for a long time, actually, I wanted to leave education. I was like, I've had it, I'm tired of education, I'm tired of all of the boxes we've got to tick, and just everything's changed so much. And I'd started coaching women making career changes, so in the evenings, but again, that just didn't, it felt right, but it didn't feel, I was like, there's a block, something's missing here. It just doesn't feel aligned. And a lot of people were saying to me, well, why don't we bring coaching to children? Why don't I work with kids? But because I was so in the school bubble, and I was like, oh, I just want to get out of the school bubble. It took me a long time to realize that. And it was totally by fluke. One day, I'd come off another CPD day that I was doing, and I was looking after, because at that point I was I'd been a year one teacher for a long time, and this particular year I was actually just covering all classes and doing smaller group support work. And I was working with a group of year sixes that day, and they were really stressed out about their SATs and moving up to secondary school and all those things. And I just started teaching some of the tools that I'd learned the day before in the stress course, and how stress impacts the brain and how it impacts the behavior and all of those sorts of things. And they were so engrossed with what I was teaching them. And this was totally off the cuff. I was like, right, well, we're just going to put something quickly together. And that really started to plant the seed of, why are we not making this accessible to children? Why do we have to wait until we're in our adult years to learn these tools? I mean, I work with so many parents who say, I wish I had these tools as a child. So why aren't we making this accessible to children? So that's really where Power Thought sort of started, in terms of that one random Tuesday afternoon, you know, after swimming, working with year 6. And I think, you know, it really is about supporting children from a young age, and parents too, in terms of those tools and strategies that we can use to develop those nourishing habits when it comes to how we think about things, how we respond to situations, and that we don't have to believe every thought that we think or respond to every feeling that we feel, you know, that we can feel them, but we don't necessarily have to let our feelings be the boss of us all the time. So yeah, I think that kind of sums it up in a nutshell.
It's really interesting. There are a couple of things you said there. But firstly, I picked up on this tendency we can all have when we know something isn't right and we feel we want to make a change, oftentimes with work, sometimes with relationships, but specifically with work. And there can be this sense of, we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I've got to change everything. Which I really relate to. But that lucky happenstance that you had that situation in that classroom that helped you kind of see, oh, there is a way to merge these two things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is about, because it's so funny, years ago, and I remember when I was still studying to be a teacher, I didn't love it. I knew I wanted to work with kids and I loved the psychology aspect of it, but I just didn't like the teaching aspect of things in terms of what I had to teach. And I remember saying to my mum time and time again, I love being a teacher, but I want to teach what I feel passionate about, what I get excited about. And I only thought about this, I think, last year, that I was like, oh my goodness, I'm actually doing that now. I remember those days sitting in a car saying, well, I don't really want to do this. I want to teach things that I'm excited about. And I think, yeah, you know, like following those like kind of little nuggets and thinking, oh, you know, like you said, it doesn't have to be these massive changes. We can actually start with the changes quite small, and then one small change leads to another small change. Because I mean, initially, if I think back to 4 or 5 years ago when I started, my intention was purely to run workshops in schools. But that's, you know, and I still do a bit of that, but that over time has changed so much in terms of what really excites me and just how things kind of go. But I'd never get to where I am right now if I didn't start with those school workshops and after school workshops and things like that.
It's definitely following the breadcrumbs. And I've certainly recognized that and things that have happened in my life. The other thing that you said, which I recognized, you know, when I was coming up with the idea for Happy Marlo, is, why aren't these things available for children? And sometimes it's like these simple things, and there's this division I often see between children and adults, and almost as if we, you know, kind of, they need to be treated separately or differently. Sometimes that's appropriate, but in so many ways, I always say, we're all human beings, we're just different ages. And there are so many different ways that things that we kind of take for granted or that are readily available to adults, which would really serve children if they were tailored and provided in the right way. It just sometimes doesn't happen. It can be so simple, but it can be overlooked.
Yeah, totally. And I think what you said there, you know, we're all human beings. And let's be honest, inside all of us is an inner 5 or 6 year old that, you know, his needs maybe weren't met 100% or has the big feelings and the big emotions. And, you know, in my work, I kind of see it the opposite way of parents. You know, when I do feedback with parents, it's like, oh, but I need these tools. I need to use this. And why wouldn't you? Because inside all of us, is that inner child. And you know, I always say, like, to parents, you know, you are very much a learner along this process with your child. It's new for you too. And, you know, not discounting what our parents have done. Absolutely not. I think, you know, many of our parents have done a fantastic job. But parenting was also very different, you know, the previous generation and the generation before and the generation before. And especially if we look at the importance of mental health and emotional well-being, how much we're speaking about that now. And it's not that, oh, now all of a sudden it's really important. It's always been important.
Yeah.
But we've not given it the light that it needs. And so for many of the families that I work with, these are tools and strategies that as parents, they realize, I'm needing to learn this too. And I'm going to be kind and compassionate with myself along the way, because just because I'm mum or dad does not mean I have all the answers. In actual fact, it means we're a learner again from day one, because every situation is new. But I love there what you said there, you know, that it is, we're all humans, and it's in that way making this accessible to children, because why do we have to wait?
Yeah. So in terms of your work with families, parents and children, what kind of things or triggers or events might families be facing that they think, yes, I want to find someone like Natalie to help us? How do people find you, or what's going on for that first kind of interaction to happen with you?
Yeah, I think there's a range of different things. So definitely when it comes to the big feelings, the big emotions, such as the anger or the worry, you know, anger and anxiety, you know, and that's normally triggered by a range of different things. You know, making mistakes, being afraid to make mistakes, or completely not putting myself forward to try something new because I'm afraid I'm going to make mistakes. I mean, lockdown, all that we've been through the last year and however long it's been now already, that was a big, because there were so many big feelings there, the lack of structure, the inconsistency, the uncertainty, the not knowing. And I mean, you know, the other aspect of things is when we look at, because obviously children, their lives are predominantly in school. It's not like they go to work, they go to school. So a lot of this is triggers that might be happening at school, or, you know, the big emotional meltdowns that happens when I get home from school. So at school, everything's all great, but then at home, it's all these big feelings that come out. And giving parents and children the tools to help work through some of those challenges. You know, we're not going to get rid of them. It's not a quick fix or anything like that, but it's about helping them understand, okay, what is actually going on. And none of this is bad, you know, especially when we talk about the angry feelings, and these angry feelings aren't bad, but there are certain things that we can start to do to help me understand what's going on and to gain the awareness. And then also, you know, be able to have some tools to help me work through that. And friendships is another key thing that I see time and time again, you know, that comes up in terms of managing relationships with others, friendships, communication styles. And if I'm just thinking, because I was talking about this yesterday, I think on my stories, about so many of the children I'm working with at the moment are really struggling with friendships and struggling to stand up for themselves, or they are on the receiving end, not necessarily of being bullied, but just on the receiving end of not being treated very well. And then the other side is also not having the confidence to go up and make new friends. So I think a lot of the triggers would tend to be stuff that's happening is stuff at school, and then parents, you know, seeking that support.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, school is such a big part of growing up. And you also mentioned about it's not eradicating these big feelings, or as if we're trying to create some kind of ridiculous, you know, unobtainable utopia. It is setting up those building blocks, isn't it? This foundation that life is challenging, stuff is going to happen, it's inevitable, but it's making sure we have the tools in our toolkits to help us better approach and navigate those things when they happen.
Yeah, totally. And I think that just adding on to that, it's very much, I mean, I created Power Thoughts for little Natalie because I was a very anxious, I mean, I still, you know, anxiety is still a thing that, yeah, I've realized it's there, you know, and we've had to learn how to manage that and work with it. But when I was little, 7 years old, having my worry, as I would call it, my worries, and picturing this big dark cloud, not knowing what it is, but it just made me feel really funny inside, and I didn't feel good, and I'd want to cry, and I'd feel scared. If I just had some of these tools to know how to work through that, and then I didn't have to believe what it said, you know, there were things that I could do to kind of zap the worries, or, you know, other strategies, that would have just made such a big difference. So in essence, that definitely would have impacted when it comes to being diagnosed with anxiety in my teens, and that would have impacted how I approach things in my 20s. I mean, I remember when I first moved to the UK, my first proper teaching job, looking back, I didn't realize what it was then, but I literally had a massive breakdown. And I remember just not being able to stop crying and completely anxious and overwhelmed. But I didn't really know what was going on because I was just like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And I do feel that if I had some of these, like what you do, the sport that you do, like this kind of work earlier on, well, I probably wouldn't be teaching power thoughts, so there's clearly a gift in that, so I'm doing that.
Yeah.
But it would have had a different impact, I think, because we're helping them to gain this awareness from a young age.
I mean, you're totally speaking my language. Whenever people say, I often get questioned or asked about Happy Marlo. Oh, is it since you became a mother that you had this idea? It's like, yeah, but no. I mean, it's very much around my inner child and younger Rebecca and all of these things that you so eloquently just spoke about. And that's why prevention and the kind of work that we're both doing is so critical, like just getting in as early as possible, so that you don't kind of, find yourself, as you said, in your kind of early adulthood with all of this stuff that you maybe haven't even unpacked or begin to understand. You're kind of taking that forward with you for all of the other challenges increasingly to be kind of layered on top, and you haven't yet been able to kind of figure out the triggers, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of getting in early so that when these things come up, they don't have the ability to take root.
Yeah.
Just smiling because Ekram has just said, speaking all of our languages. And I did want to say someone else, because I know these lovely messages disappear after we clock off, but somebody said, Natalie is a tonic to a very important stage in our lives as parents of a 7-year-old. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, that, and that, it is, I think, it's why my thing is just, why do we have to wait? So if I had to go, and it's really interesting because I mean, I'm still, and I don't know about you, but I'm consciously always having to apply the tools that I teach the kids, and the parents would have feedback. So I was like, oh yeah, well, FYI, take note, let's do this again, when your negative thoughts pop up, but it's, and I think we're not going to stop the challenges. That's definitely not about the softly approach. And actual fact is very much about the hard stuff is going to happen. But how can we work with those hard things in a better way?
There's no perfect, there's no end of the line. It's kind of like, if you work out, you see the results. If you stop, you see the consequences of that. It's exactly the same thing. As we've said a few times, it's giving those tools early on so you can get in the habit of using them, you can practice them, you can build the emotional muscles, as I like to call them, and it's just, setting you up in a really good way, really strong foundation.
Yeah, definitely. And touching on that, because I was going to say, actually, it is about building those as habits. It's not a quick thing, and it's something that is ongoing. It's not that we have, these sessions and that's it now we're all sorted. It's now we've actually really got to start applying these everyday conversations when those challenges come up. So when things feel difficult, that's when we need to be using them. And practice using them when things feel easy, but so that they're also there when the challenges are there. It's not about not having the challenges. And it's not about not having the worry or not having the anxiety. It's about, okay, here it is, but now how can I work with it?
Yeah, it's like one of the things I've learned about myself, it's changing your go-tos. So something happens, and whereas my immediate reaction in the past might have been anger or to flare up, it's that pause, it's creating that little pause where you can make a choice around how you're going to react. And for me, whether that's tapping or doing some breath work or whatever, but it's creating that space, that habit to just take that minute of, do I want to react like this, or do I want to go to this, which might help me better in the longer term.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I love it.
What are you finding? I'm really interested, going back to the schools topic, what are you kind of finding, or have you noticed a change since you were teaching here in the UK yourself? Because I hear mixed reports from teacher friends, from parents, around how schools are really navigating all of this, from I don't know, scenarios I have heard of, we don't really want to like get the kids upset, so we just don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
To other classrooms where teachers are being really proactive and looking out for tools, and having people like you, Natalie, coming in. What's your kind of take on where we're at with schools at the minute?
I think schools want the support, and I think, you know, over the years I've definitely, you know, I've worked with some, been really lucky to work with amazing schools that embrace the support. They know the importance of it. But then there are also, from my experience, and I don't make it into those schools because it's not the most important thing. There are other things deemed to be more important, which, I mean, really doesn't actually come from them all the time. It comes from the powers above in terms of the other scores that are important, in terms of the maths, the sciences, the English, and that always takes precedence. And, you know, going back to when I was in the classroom, probably about 5 years ago now, that was it. Those are the important things, and all these other things kind of get pushed to the side. So I think it really does depend on the headship, the leadership of the school, what they value. I definitely see differences in that, and obviously my communication with schools and so forth. And then there's also the issue of time. I think that's the other thing, because they're so pressed for time that, again, all the other things seem to be more important, and they are important. Don't get me wrong, maths, science, all of that is important. But I always come from, well, your child's not going to learn well if they're stressed, if they're anxious. They're in a stressed state. Their brain's not integrated properly. You know, their brain's still growing and developing. And I don't want to use the word, not to say trauma with a capital T, but there are little, you know, there are little things that happen, and we can deal with that in a better way if children know how their brain works and what happens with the feelings and how to work with their feelings. And then the other thing that I find as well is budget. So budget is a massive thing for schools. And I think, again, many schools really want the support. And like I said, the schools I've worked with have been brilliant in terms of providing the support. But I mean, there was a stage that I really wanted to go into a lot of schools, but the gatekeepers were just too much. And to be honest, I've not given up, but I'm like, you know, I'm a company of one, and there is me, and I've got to go with where I can work best as well. And if that's not working, then that's not working, and that's a bigger system than just me. But it is. But I mean, the heads in the schools that I do work with, they really want it. They know that they need it. They know the importance of it. But there's so many other things. I think if the curriculum could be given to teachers and to heads, I think, you know, we might strip it away a bit more and take some things out and put other things in. It's such, I mean, it's a very big conversation.
It is loaded, and it's such
what do you find?
It's a big conversation. But the thing is, when we're working with children, particularly young children, in this space, the education piece is a big part of the puzzle, as you rightly said. It's where they spend so much of their time. And this could be a conversation all of its own, but, you know, my opinion is that the current system is not fit for purpose and is not serving our young and teachers are doing their absolute best. But yeah, it's like you could be a brilliant mathematician or have a grasp on all of these academic things, but if you're not emotionally well, then it kind of doesn't matter.
Exactly. And I think something else that often comes up, and again, I would not know how to, like, this is not my zone of expertise at all, but something that I see causes those big feelings and the triggers and the stories that children create as to why they can't do something is, again, as well, that system of how schools are, you know, that we're all, and I mean, like I said, I wouldn't know how to go about changing this either, but it is that we've all got to reach, you know, you're this age to this age, you've got to reach this level by this time, and if you don't reach that level by this time, then you're not smart enough or good enough. I mean, it's not necessarily said like that, but, you know, or you get 10 out of 10 for a spelling test, great. So there's also that external validation, you know, the self-worth made on those scores that I get, the achievements that I get, which is great in itself. It all serves a purpose. But then the flip side of that is, well, I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. I'm not. And then, okay, getting a bit deeper. Some of those things are good because life is hard. You aren't going to get right with everything. You're not going to be accepted into everything. You're not going to, you know, things aren't always going to be easy. So I understand there's that element of grit and resilience that we're teaching our children. But I do feel it could be done with an overhaul of some way or another, you know, and, you know, going back into, and I don't know the full history of schools, but going back into the history of schools, it was more for, I think, lined up for factory workers. And
for the industrial age.
And when we worked very differently. And I just think, and, you know, so many kids I work with, and we all just learn at a different pace.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we're stupid or that we're not smart or that there's something wrong with us, but we all learn in a different way. We learn at a different pace. And sometimes, you know, I was saying this, I think it was in another live this week, in terms of children maybe that I had in year one that maybe were behind or academically not, you know, where they should be, then see them in like when they're in secondary school, and I mean they've just flourished.
Yeah.
They've caught up or whatever, you know, they've developed. So I think, like I said, I don't have the answer to this. I don't, but I do feel like, could this be done in a different way? And yeah.
I think there's an appetite, Natalie. I think things are shifting, and I think we are going to start to see new ways and perhaps a new system, definitely in our lifetime. One of the things that excites me is the wave of popularity of nursery forest schools and forest schools, and that real connection with learning and nature and being outside and having fun, because we learn through things that we're excited about or that are interesting. Of course we do. It's when things are boring that we switch off. So I think we're starting to see the signs of some positive change.
Definitely. And I mean, I did, you know, schools and heads realize the importance of emotional well-being with it, you know, it's always in the news now as well in terms of how many, you know, what the stats are and so forth. And especially I think from lockdown as well, like realizing how important it is. It's just, can we make it easier for them to take this on board? I think that's, you know, and I think somebody mentioned here around the national curriculum. Homeschooling pandemic showed me how poor the national curriculum is, not inspiring children to love learning or be emotionally available. Yes, you know, there's, like I said, it's a different conversation. It's a big conversation to have, but totally with you with that.
So we've got a few minutes left, and I'm putting you slightly on the spot, so I hope you don't mind. But I thought maybe we could get into some of your tips and hacks so that any parents or teachers that might be watching this have something tangible that they could take away. And I was looking at your 5 steps around managing big things. I'm putting you on the spot. And so I pulled out 3 of them to see if we could talk about them. The first one is explore it, don't fight it. What does that mean, Natalie?
Get curious about the feeling. So when we resist it, there's that quote, I can't remember who said it, but what we resist persists. So when we resist the feelings, they get bigger and bigger and more intense. If we try to suppress them, they always come back. So what I normally suggest is like, let's become curious about the feeling. Let's ask questions, or let's create it into a character. You know, what does it feel? Where do I notice this in my body? You know, what's it trying maybe to tell me? And what we also understand is like, you know, when we start to explore the feeling rather than, oh, I've got to resist this feeling, it actually comes and then it goes. So if we're able to then sit with it, because our feelings will pass, they're not going to be stuck on us. I think, and again, forgive me, I can't remember who said this, but she was a guest on Oprah Winfrey years ago, and she was in neuroscience, some professor or specialist in neuroscience. But, you know, she said something that really stuck with me, that your feelings or your emotions only last with you for 90 seconds. Was
it Amy Smart?
I think so.
Amy Cuddy.
No, it wasn't Amy Cuddy. This
was
before Amy Cuddy. I remember that. I still remember that before. It was before Amy Cuddy. And this neuroscientist or neuroscience professor had even undergone a stroke herself, and it was all this kind of work through that. But physiologically, chemically in the body, the feeling comes and goes for something like 90 seconds. But then we hold on to it more because of our thoughts and the story we're telling ourselves. I mean, I'm not, she says it a lot better than what I do, right? But it really is. And I mean, I've definitely noticed it myself, like when I get really anxious and I'm like, I start to like, you know, we resist it or we push it away. But actually, if I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to sit here. Okay, notice it. Where do I notice it? What's trying to tell me? It does go. And I mean, and I think as well, if we can create it into, make it playful for kids, create it into a character, you know, give it a name, then we also start to see, okay, well, it's outside of me. I'm not my feeling. I can feel it, but I don't necessarily have to be my feeling, if that makes sense. Attach myself.
Yeah, Donna, who works with me at Happy Marlo, she always talks about let's become detectives in our own story, in our own investigation.
Yeah, love
and
that.
ask those questions.
Yeah, love that.
The second one, name it to tame it.
Name the emotions. I think it's really important to begin to name and label the feelings. I'm sure you're also familiar with your work. You know, children often say feel happy, sad, or mad, but there's so many more different feelings that we can feel. So if I'm feeling really mad and enraged, that might need something, I might need something else to help me with that versus if I'm just feeling frustrated or I'm just feeling a bit irritable. So the more, and I mean, this definitely comes with time. It's not something that we just do in one session. It's not something that is even done in a year. I think we can always build on that emotional vocabulary. But the more words we have to express how we feel, the more power we have. Because then I can articulate how I feel versus, and I mean, I remember working a couple of years ago with a lovely young guy who was about 20, 21, and he was struggling with naming his feelings. He's like, well, I don't know, I just feel bad. But, and obviously, you know, it was, we'd always teach that labeling these feelings and what does it feel like and where do we notice it and what's the different, you know, how does it feel different? But the more we can begin to articulate how we feel, the more in control or more empowered we will be to help us work through that. So as parents, naming our children's feelings, if they can't verbally, even with 1 or 2 year olds, you're feeling really frustrated now. It looks like you're feeling a bit irritated. They might, you know, word wise, they might not be able to articulate that, but the more we do it, that they're learning that. So it's, you know, the more we can start to do that, and with ourselves as well, like when we get a big feeling, thinking, oh, well, what is it that I'm really feeling? Maybe what's underneath this feeling? And beginning to kind of become your own detective in that sense.
That really resonates. And as I think about my 3-year-old, and I'm always actively like thinking of, you know, introducing words to her because she's building her very early vocabulary. And the more words that we have that really speak to the nuance as well, you know, I can see how that would be really helpful and empowering, as you said.
Yeah, definitely. And it will help you in the long run understand then what it is that they're feeling when they can begin to articulate what they're feeling. So that just helps in so many different ways.
Yeah, communication.
Yeah.
Always communication.
Always.
And then the last of these 3 was don't resist it, learn to surf it.
Yeah, sometimes I think it kind of goes with, what was the first one we spoke about? Sorry, the resist.
Explore it, don't fight it.
Yeah, it kind of goes with that one a little bit as well, like in terms of not resisting those feelings or suppressing them. But also in adding on to that, sometimes we just have to ride the wave and we've just got to go through it. We've just got to experience this feeling. But what can I do to help me experience that feeling? Now, I understand that with children and little ones, when they have those big blowouts, you know, the meltdowns, sometimes nothing that we do is going to stop it. And we just have to, for us as adults, surf that wave, ride the wave, because the wave does come to the end. But equally teaching them the tools to help them surf those waves of big feelings when they are in those emotional places, whether it is self-soothing strategies, breathing strategies, grounding strategies. Because again, it goes back to that, what we resist persists, and it carries on. Whereas if I can work through it, and again, knowing that it will come and it will go, and having those tools to support me, and then having a conversation, you know, if they've had the big meltdown, we can have a conversation about it afterwards. And yeah, sometimes we just have to be that, we've just got to like, okay, I'm just going to surf this bumpy wave right now, you know.
Absolutely. Well, we actually have a couple of questions.
Oh yeah.
So Helen asked for tips on perfectionism in girls. She
Ooh, good.
won't try if she knows she won't be good at it. Oh, I was like that. She's 9 years old. What do you have to say on that, Natalie?
Yeah, good one. Perfectionism is a big thing. I see that a lot, and it's this fear of making mistakes. I think a
Mm,
couple of things there. Um, how can we begin to normalize making mistakes? And this is going to take more than one conversation or one situation. I think using yourself, children are looking at us all the time. So using yourself as an example of how do you respond to mistakes when you, maybe I'm going to try this. I'm just going to try this with a sense of curiosity. What can I learn from it? How is this going to help me grow? What's something new that I can learn from this? And when you make a mistake, you're like, oh, I've made a mistake, but give me a high five, because guess what? I'm learning something new. So
yeah,
it's beginning to change that conversation, or that perception, should I say, around mistakes are bad, to yes, mistakes are good. I mean, I work with a lot of children that struggle with this, and we really work on shifting that perspective that mistakes help me grow and learn, because my brain is like a muscle. So
yeah,
if I do swimming and I do lots of swimming training, or if I do football, if I do football and I'm running up and down and my muscles get tired, that's me exercising my muscles. But my brain needs a workout too. Now, how my brain gets a workout is when I make mistakes and when I do those hard things. My
yeah,
brain doesn't really get a workout if I just sit back and things are all comfortable and easy. Might get a little bit, but I'm really helping my brain grow, and it's helping them kind of begin to see that. And almost like setting a challenge. Let's get something wrong a day, and that means what
yeah.
I'm learning from it.
Yeah, I love that. The normalizing of
Mm,
mistakes, failure, like these are all, the connotations of these words is really negative and heavy.
yeah.
Sharmadean Reed, who's a business leader who I absolutely love, she spoke recently of life just being a series of learning experiments and
Yeah,
seeing it in that way. Um,
definitely. And I love that, because that's the element of curiosity.
mm,
So instead of thinking, oh, I've got to get this right, I'm just going to be curious. I'm just going to be, what can I learn? Well, how am I going to grow from this? And I think having that sort of mentality, and it takes the pressure off.
yeah,
But again, it's very much, if I just think back to, at school, we're conditioned, okay, I'm going to get a 10 out of 10, and that means I'm really
yeah.
learning. So if I get 1 out of 10, that means I'm really bad. Where actually one of the kids that I worked with, I mean, he was one of my first little clients, and I don't work with 4-year-olds anymore just because I do everything online and it's not face to face anymore. But we did a lot of work on understanding how his brain grows and gets stronger. And so when he would get 3 out of 10, he was excited, because he's like, oh, my brain's growing, and what am I learning, and how does this help me
Yeah,
grow? And over time, it just, it was that, okay, my brain's getting stronger versus I'm not getting better at this. Uh,
yeah,
and I think that that's really important. And using yourself, how do you respond to failure and perfectionism? And again, I'm just like I know I still teach this, and there's a lot of work that I still have to do around growth mindset.
oh yeah,
It's
oh
because
yeah,
it's so ingrained. It's so ingrained. And it's been a lot of work in terms of detaching from that.
yeah. But I just love the growth mindset thing. I love the idea. My husband always talks about all of us are talented. It's just we might not necessarily access the talent because we haven't tried enough stuff yet. But
Yeah.
there's so many different things in the world and our lives. And we were watching the Bake Off final last night.
Yeah.
And I understand because I only half watch it. But one of the finalists only started baking during lockdown last year. And here he is, a
Yeah.
finalist in this national, global phenomenon. So because he tried something new. And so there's something around, isn't there, that, like you said, let's make it fun. Not so good at that. That's okay. Let's try something else. Or
Try something else, and I think, yeah, going on with that sort of mentality. And there was something else. Sorry, I know. I mean, I'm okay for time, but I don't want to take up more of your time. But
I'm loving this. It's great.
me too. There was something. Yeah, another powerful way, just for any wannabe, like the perfectionists out there. And I'm always like, it's a wannabe perfectionist, because your level of perfect is not my level of perfect. So what
Yeah.
is perfect? And I know school might make it a little bit different because of your scores and stuff, but having that, thinking about that. But exploring successful people that we see in the media, and have a look and see all of their failures, rejections, setbacks, disappointments, when things didn't work out. Nobody has gotten to the level of success without any setbacks.
Yeah.
And I think that is sometimes so powerful for children to see. So one of the boys I'm currently working with, who is 10 or 11, I think he's just gone to secondary school, really struggles with making mistakes. And he loves Formula One. So one of his drivers, Lando Norris, I think it might be Lando Norris. I'm not a big Formula One fan, but looking at, well, how does he respond? How was he, and I think, yes, because he was crying on screen. I think he had an interview recently because I think he just lost a race or something had happened. But what a brilliant representation of playing with failure and working through our mistakes. Here he is, and yes, it's painful. I'm not resisting the feelings. I'm sitting in the feelings. I'm surfing those feelings. But here I am, and the next week I'm back racing again. Learn from that. So I think that's a really powerful thing for children as well. When we work through that, I mean, we take whoever it is that they resonate with, if there is somebody. And I think it's just a great inspiration, even for us as adults, if we struggle with that. It's like, hold on, it's like, we just learn through these experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. The modeling, the role modeling piece is really, really key.
Definitely.
So I think this is Liana, and I called her Ekram before, so forgive me, I'm sorry. But she said, is this an amazing live? Are there any books or links that can be shared, especially around meltdowns for 5-year-olds?
Yeah, so there's a really good storybook that I like to use. What's it called? When Miles Got Mad is a storybook that really begins to explain around the big feelings, how the anger gets really big, but then there's certain strategies that Miles uses to come back to a space of calm and a space of feeling grounded. In terms of, I've got my own activity books, but they're for children slightly older, so age 6. I tend to work with children who are 6 and up. But we've got, I can send you the link. It's activity books around noticing the big feelings in my body, and they've got to kind of color it in. They've got to write down or draw pictures about what makes them feel big feelings. And the book for that it's either called Stretch Your Confidence, or it's called Know Your Power. So I can send the links, or DM me and I can send you to the right website, because there's some activity books there around big feelings, and and maybe with your support as parents, working through those activities with your children to help them understand that. And I've also got my own online courses on managing big feelings, so I'm sure you've got loads of things.
Well, I was going to say, we'll put some links in the comments, Liana. For my 2 pennies for Happy Marlo, I will say for 5-year-olds, we've got some great sound baths, sound healing sessions on our website. And we're just, hopefully by the end of this week, going to launch our new members area that's got some more free resources in there as well. So tapping, I'm a big tapping.
Yeah, I love tapping. I use it personally. I've not used it with children yet, but I use it personally, and it makes such a big
It's crazy how good it is. It's crazy how effective. So yeah, quite a few tips and hints for you there, Liana, and we'll put them in the comments of this so everyone can see them later. Well, Natalie, I think we've come to our time today, but I've absolutely loved our conversation. I hope this is the first of many.
Definitely. No, I've loved it, and I'd love to have you over on my story. Well, my page. I mean, we still end up being here, but maybe in the new year, it'd be good to have you on, and we can think of someone to talk about. It'd be great to speak to you further.
Been my absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I've loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you too.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye.